I'm Mr. Patierne.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Before we move to our committee meetings, we have one public hearing on the agenda tonight. At this time, I'd like to call the public hearing to order, which pertains to the recommendations of the Schenectady County Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Mr. Fields is absent. Mr. Ruzzo. Ms. Pratt.
Present.
Mr. McGill.
Present.
Mr. Constantine.
Here.
Scata.
Here.
Mr. Frisoni.
Present.
Mr. Cuomo.
Here.
Mr. Paterne.
Present.
Ms. Ostrelich is absent. Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry is excused. Mr. Hughes.
Present.
Mr. McDonald. Here. Mr. Jasenski.
Present.
All present, 2 absent, 1 excused.
Thank you. Clerk will read the notice of this evening's public hearing.
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 303B of the Agricultural Markets Law of the State of New York, that one or more requests for inclusion in the predominantly viable agricultural land within a certified agricultural district have been filed with the Schenectady County Legislature. A public hearing is hereby called on Monday, February 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Legislative Chambers in the Schenectady County Office Building, 620 State Street, 6th floor, Schenectady, New York, for the purpose of hearing all interested persons on the recommendations of the Schenectady County Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board regarding applications to include certain parcels in the Schenectady County Agricultural District.
Thank you. Any members of the public who would like to address this evening's public hearing? Any members of the public wishing to address this evening's public hearing? Anyone, members of the public wishing to address this evening's public hearing? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. I apologize about that. Any comments received?
No.
There you go. No comments. So we'll move to our first committee meeting this evening, the Committee on Environmental Conservation, Renewable Energy, and Parks, to be chaired by Legislator Pratt.
Good evening. I hereby call the Committee on Environmental Conservation, Renewable Energy, and Parks to order. Tonight we have 2 items on the agenda. ECREP 1, which is a resolution regarding the conversion of certain streetlights to light-emitting diode lights. It's my understanding there's 348 streetlights altogether being converted over to LED. This would reduce energy usage by 235,000 kilowatt hours, would reduce CO2 emissions by 167 metric tons per year, and the year 1 cost savings is estimated at over $62,000 with about savings of $37,000 per year. So we have Charlie Davidson here, our sustainability coordinator to provide further comments. So thank you, Charlie.
Thank you for having me. Yes, so it would be a combined, in the first year, $62,000. That's basically a cumulative of estimated energy cost savings on our bill, and also approximately $25,000 we would get from National Grid as part of their energy efficient incentives program, which is a way to incentivize the communities to convert their streetlights to LED lighting, just to kind of reduce barrier costs. So I reached out to National Grid sometime in the summer about their LED conversion program. They gave me 2 proposals. One is for conversion of our streetlights and the purchase of all assets related to that. That was approximately $300,000. The second proposal is just for conversion of the streetlights. That would be approximately $23.4 thousand. I recommend proposal 2, pretty much because proposal 1, there's a high cost to it, significantly higher than the $23.4 thousand with proposal 2. And in addition, with proposal 1, since we would be the owners of the streetlights, we would also be in charge of the unpredictable costs associated with maintaining them and any repairs that might happen to any of those 348 poles throughout the county. Overall, it's a great program. It would save us money on our bills. It would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 167 metric tons a year, and it's just something that I encourage that we should do. Again, I leave that for your consideration and be happy to answer any questions you might have about this proposal.
All right, definitely one of those win-win projects. Do we have any questions or comments? Yes, Legislator Ruzzo.
Thank you, Legislator Pratt. Charlie, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Obviously, converting all of our streetlights is an initiative that I'm sure I speak for most, that we want to undertake. And the savings and the carbon footprint is important. I'm curious, I get the fact that if we do the low-cost approach, which is just convert the lights and get the save, that's smart from a capital expenditure. But what are we giving up what does purchasing the infrastructure mean? What is the infrastructure that we're purchasing? And do we get right-of-way on every one of those poles that we can potentially capture revenue at a later date if we actually own the infrastructure? So I know that's kind of a fairly, I packed in a lot into a question, and I would just ask that maybe we can explore this a little bit further, and or maybe you can answer.
Yeah, so with purchasing the streetlights, one of the benefits would be we would no longer have to pay, let's say, the tariffs associated with renting out the poles, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And in terms of what we would be gaining, we would be purchasing the poles, the wiring, the base of the poles, the bulbs themselves. And in terms of potentially something we could be giving up, it would be, we wouldn't have the option to customize them in the way, let's say, the city of Schenectady has been trying to do as part of their smart city, where they add those cameras to them. We would be, I guess, for now, giving up that opportunity. It's not something we can do now because we don't own them currently, but it's also something we could decide to do later on.
I want to make sure I understood the answer.
Sure.
I apologize.
No.
You're saying if we went forward from an infrastructure capital expense, we have options. We would be able to add revenue producing appliances or additional infrastructure because we would own the pole and the pole right of way.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Correct. So under the current proposal, the option 2, which is just for the conversion of the LED lights, literally nothing is changing from what we are currently involved with the lights, street lights. It's just a matter of we're swapping out the bulbs for energy efficient bulbs.
Yeah.
So we're not giving up anything that we currently already have. It's just for this current moment, we're foregoing the possibility to do the added stuff to the poles, but we can always revisit that and decide down the line we would like to purchase the assets associated with it. And then if we want to do the projects associated with, like, again, adding cameras to them or any other things we might want to do within reason.
Okay, so the window doesn't just open because of the fact that we're doing this conversion. You're saying that any time we can go to National Grid and go, you know what, we want to purchase our pole asset infrastructure.
Within a, like, there's like a certain number of times you can request within like a period, but like that's usually, I think, I want to say maybe 180 days from the time the proposal is expired. So there, you could do it, like request the rate within, I think, twice a year, possibly 3 times, but yeah.
Any additional questions?
Yep. Have we compared the light quality or the wattage of the bulbs? Are we going to be able to see as well with the new bulbs?
I mean, generally LED lights are better kind of lighting, so it should illuminate the roads a bit better than the current lighting. Yes.
Anyone else? I would entertain a motion. Okay, Legislator Hughes, in a second. Legislator McDonald, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion has been approved. Next, we have ECREP2, which is a resolution confirming the appointment of a person to the Schenectady County Environmental Advisory Council. So Haley Stoltenberg is recommended to fill the position of student liaison for Union College. She's attended several meetings and has been acting as a de facto student liaison for Union College up until this point. Her resume is attached in the packet. Does anyone have any additional questions on Haley's appointment?
Move to report.
I have a motion from Legislator
Second.
Hughes, second from Legislator Gatta. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, ECRAP2 has been approved, and with there being no further...
Legislator Pratt,
Yes.
before we close the Committee on Environmental Conservation, can we just remind everybody that it's not too difficult we've been virtual for so long and using our laptops and our iPads, and it's very easy to come in with the agenda on your iPad, on your laptop, and relieve some of the printing and the use of paper that we do. So I would encourage
Absolutely.
everybody to.
Thank you so
Part
much
of
for
that.
making
Thank
that
you.
point. I know we've been talking about that for many years now, and
Yes.
that's something, hopefully we can continue that discussion and not only bring in the electronic devices, but also stop printing the packets. I appreciate that. Thank you, Legislator Gatta. Any further comments? Okay, so with there being no further business, I close the committee meeting for Environmental Conservation, Renewable Energy, and Parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Economic Development and Planning, to be chaired by Legislator Hughes.
We have one item before us tonight in the Committee on Economic Development and Planning. It is EDP number 4. This is a resolution regarding the purchase of property at 234 South Ferry Street in the city of Schenectady. This is a continuation of a series of purchases that we have been making over the past couple of months, several months, to assemble a parcel that eventually can be used by the community college, by SUNY Schenectady, for future expansion, since they're landlocked going toward the river, and the path to expansion is actually into downtown. So this is another piece of that, and I'm joined tonight by our Commissioner of Economic Development and Planning, Ray Gillen, who will walk us through the
Thank you.
nature of the proposal.
Thank you. Dr. Mono's here, along with Patrick Ryan, Vice President of Administration for the college. I want to thank them, and also Chris Gardner and Frank Solomon for putting together the contract, which calls for the payment of $250,000 following a period of due diligence. That'll be split between the county and SUNY, so the county's responsibility would be $125,000. As Legislator Hughes said, this is part of our plan to position the college for continued growth in the lower State Street area. Growth toward the west is not possible due to the floodplains and the riverfront. This is a very successful effort. We've talked about it in depth at the last couple of meetings. So happy to answer any questions, but I want to thank the team for getting this property under contract, and we can begin the due diligence process and hopefully move forward with the purchase if you approve this at our meeting next week.
Comments or questions from any member?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried and the committee meeting is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Health, Housing, and Human Services, to be chaired by Legislator McGill.
Good evening, everybody. We'd like to call the Committee on Health, Housing, and Human Services to order. We do have one item this evening, which is item HHHS 2. It's a resolution regarding the acceptance of monies from the New York State Department of Health for the Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Program. And with us this evening, we have Claire Proffitt, who is the Deputy Public Health Director to share some information with us about this.
Okay, thank you. So this money would be to increase the funding for our childhood lead poisoning prevention program. This is an education, screening, and remediation program that allows us to refer children for blood lead screening and then go in and actually do testing of their homes for lead in the paint or in other parts of the houses, and then have that property remediated to get rid of that lead poisoning risk for children. Because so much of our housing stock in Schenectady was built during a time period where lead paint was very prevalent, this is a widespread problem in the county. This increase in funding, it's an additional $184,337 over the next 5 years, is to assist us with responding now that the state has lowered the actionable blood lead level from 5 micrograms per deciliter to 3.5 micrograms per deciliter. So in reality, this means that any child who has any lead in their blood whatsoever requires follow-up by the county health department, which we anticipate will greatly increase the amount of work that our staff have to do. Along with the accepting the funds, we're requesting to create an additional full-time public health technician position in order to have an additional person to do the follow-up work that will come along with all the additional children that we expect to be following up on in the following few years.
Thank you so much for that information. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? We can start with Sarah, and then we'll go to Rich Ruzzo.
Sure, thank you so much for your time, Claire. I do have a question. So you mentioned this is pretty widespread throughout Schenectady County. I'm wondering if it is disproportionate. Do you see it's much more widespread in the city versus the more suburban and rural areas, and could you speak to that?
Yes, absolutely. So our target zip codes are 12303, 04, 07, and 08. That is where we predominantly see children with elevated blood lead levels, but we do respond to elevated blood lead levels anywhere in the county because, of course, you could be at risk even if you're in a rural area or in a suburban area. But yes, we do see it disproportionately affecting people in the city.
My question, I realize that the past 2 years we've probably skewed the statistics, but do we have a sense of how many remediation projects we've accomplished, or what the impact we've had over the last few years of this program?
Yes, we do. You're right, it has gone down a little bit during the pandemic. So there's two things we look at. We look at children with elevated blood lead levels, and then we look at properties that were referred for remediation. And in 2019, we had 96 properties referred. It really decreased in 2020 to 41, but then it was back up to 93 in 2021. We did have an issue where the machine that the provider's offices used to test children for lead in their blood was actually recalled by the FDA, meaning that for the past couple of years, children have only been able to be tested with a venous blood draw, and this has decreased the number of children getting the testing done. The FDA has approved a new machine, so we do anticipate that there's going to be a real increase in kids being tested once that machine is in production and is available to providers. It is, right now there are some supply chain issues, but as with everything, but we do see that we think that will lead to a lot more children being tested.
And it's an important program, so thank you.
Any other questions? Moved by Legislator Hughes, seconded by Legislator Pratt. Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I now call the Committee on Health, Housing, and Human Services to a close. Thank you.
Thank you. This time, we'd like to recognize Legislator Patierne with the Committee on Intergovernmental Cooperation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Intergovernmental Cooperation has only one item on the agenda this evening. It's an initiative urging New York State to lift the public school mask requirements in counties where 7-day test averages and hospitalization rates have reduced to acceptable levels, and to allow parents to make the choice on whether their children should continue to wear masks. In light of the governor's announcement yesterday that school mask mandate will be lifted effective Wednesday, as a sponsor of the resolution, I will be tabling the initiative pursuant to section 6.3.5 of the rules of the legislature. The measure will remain in committee in the event we need to revisit it, but for the time being, there's no need for the Committee on Intergovernmental Cooperation to convene this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Labor and Civil Service, to be chaired by Legislator Frisoni.
Good evening. I call the Committee on Labor and Civil Service to order. We have two items on the agenda this evening. The first is LCS Initiative 3, a resolution to create and eliminate certain positions at the Schenectady County Public Health Services. At this time, I would like to ask Deputy Director of Public Health, Claire Proffitt, to provide some background on this initiative.
All right, so we are requesting to eliminate 2 public health nursing positions and take those positions to create 2 new positions. One of them was a public health nurse who has been working in our Children with Special Needs department, doing the work of a early intervention care coordinator for quite some time. Now that she's retiring, we would like to change that position into an actual early intervention care coordinator position, which will change it from a CSEA grade 15 to a 14, and will make it much easier to recruit for that position, as it is not typically work that a public health nurse would do. The other position that we're eliminating is a vacant, or would like to eliminate, is a vacant public health nurse position that has been working primarily in our communicable disease and preparedness programs, and we'd like to instead create a public health specialist position. We have not had public health specialists working in our general programs previously, but in doing some research with other counties, we found that many of them do. The benefit of this is that it will create a career path for some of our existing staff. We have staff that we brought in as COVID temps who've been extremely loyal to our department over the past couple of years. Some of them have stayed on as public health aides, and we'd like to have a way to allow them to grow in our department and stay in our department so that we don't lose that expertise, particularly because these staff members are people from Schenectady, from either the city or the county of Schenectady, and we really are working to increase that in our department. This will also, because it will also be a cost savings, because both of these positions are going to be lower. The early intervention care coordinator is a grade 14, and the public health specialist is a 13.
Any discussion?
Second.
Mr. McGill, did you have a question? No, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The initiative is reported to the agenda. Thank you. Our next item is LCS Initiative 4, a resolution creating certain positions at the Department of Social Services. At this time, I would like to ask our Commissioner of Social Services, Paul Brady, to provide some background on this initiative.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Yep, I have made a request to add 2 social welfare examiners to the department's organizational functions. The social welfare examiners essentially do eligibility in our office, and what we've seen since about the beginning of September last year is a fairly significant increase in the number of applications that we've had for our SNAP program. SNAP is traditionally what most people would call our food stamps program. It's interesting in terms of looking at the data because we've seen a dramatic increase in the applications, but we're seeing just a marginal creep in the actual caseload. But you know, when you start looking at data, some of it was highlighted in my memo as part of the packet. You know, traditionally we would get about 700 applications a month. Now we're running closer to 950, and in the month of January we had almost 1,100, or a little over 1,100. We've been able to manage the workload to a certain degree by taking staff from other program areas, from our Medicaid unit, from our temporary assistance unit, and that works temporarily. And if this were something that I thought was, you know, just episodic, we could probably manage it. I'm a little bit concerned that this might be a long-term trend that we've seen. You know, we're seeing the same sort of thing with our home energy assistance program. I think partially that's been driven just by costs related to the heating program and the season this year. And so we've seen a fairly dramatic increase with caseloads or applications there of over 60% from year to year. So what you know, what my proposal involves is utilizing funds that were appropriated in a different portion of our departmental budget in order to be able to offset these costs. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody has about the request.
Mr. Ruzzo?
Paul, do we have a backlog of candidates that have gone through civil service and might be a good fit for this, or
no?
No.
Social welfare examiners and caseworkers, you know, those are two titles that you know, we have a fair number of positions within the department. We also see fairly significant turnover within those titles. So what we have been doing is essentially we have been exhausting lists when they come out. We have taken to hiring provisional appointees, which we've had some success with because we will actually do test prep with the provisional appointees. And you know, we did that during COVID when the tests, the civil service tests, were suspended. And it actually worked out very well for us. You know, we anticipate that we'll probably do the same thing in this circumstance.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hughes, Mr. McDonald. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? This initiative is reported.
Thank you very much.
This concludes our business. Is there a motion to close this committee meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. The Committee on Labor and Civil Service is now closed.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Public Facilities, Transportation, and Infrastructure, to be chaired by Legislator Patierne.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to call to order the Committee on Public Facilities, Transportation, and Infrastructure. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. The first is PFTI 4, resolution to amend the 2022 Capital Improvement Program, provide additional funding for the construction of a flex pod hangar at the Schenectady County Airport. Tonight we have Paul Sheldon with us.
The electrical bid for the proposed flex pod hangar was recently opened with a total cost of this component coming in at $183,750. As was noted during the February 2022 committee meeting, Schenectady County Community College was proposing to utilize 2 of the 4 pods in the hangar for airplane storage and classroom space. At that time, the college requested nearly $400,000 in funding from the New York State Dormitory Authority to help offset costs associated with the construction of the flex pod facility. College is planning to pursue additional funding from the authority to offset 50% of the proposed electrical work, or $91,875. County will be responsible for the remaining share of this work. We are requesting your approval for a capital budget amendment to accommodate the increased costs associated with the results of the electrical bid.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions?
Move to report.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. This initiative is reported to the agenda. Our second item tonight is PFTI 5, a resolution to authorize the county manager to enter into a multi-year airport joint use agreement.
Thank you. The authorization is requested to enter into, we're looking for authorization requested to enter in a multi-year joint use agreement with the Air National Guard Bureau. This agreement allows New York Air National Guard use of the Schenectady County Airport in return for annual payments. The agreement provides for a first-year annual payment of $69,800.37, with subsequent annual payments based on the U.S. Department of Labor's Consumer Price Index from the previous fiscal year. This will ensure the rate of payment for the lease will increase over the 10-year lease agreement. This agreement also reimburses the Air National Guard for any firefighting foam used for civil aircrafts in the event of an emergency. We recommend your approval for this agreement.
Thanks again. Questions? Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion and just point out that the important role that having the Air Guard based at Schenectady County Airport is a significant economic development contribution generator for our county. So we're happy to have the Guard there, and if this provides stability for that mission and continues that, then it's well worthwhile, and I'll move it to report.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Excellent point. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. This initiative is reported to the agenda. And our final resolution of the evening is PFTI 6, a resolution regarding capital budgetary amendments for SUNY Schenectady for a fitness court. Patrick Ryan here tonight to explain a little further. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Legislator Attorney. Hello, everyone. The initiative in front of you is requesting an authorization to permit SUNY Schenectady to amend the capital budget request for the use of currently uncommitted state capital support. What we'd like to do is build a fitness court at the college down by the river near the bike path. We've secured $92,500 in private support, and this uncommitted capital appropriation from the state would allow us to match that $92,500 for a total of $185,000 to build this court. This requests no request, there is no request here for funding from the county for this, just the authorization to access the uncommitted state support.
Thank you.
Move to report.
Move the report. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. This initiative is reported. And with that, the Committee on Public Facilities, Transportation, and Infrastructure is now closed.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Public Safety and Firefighting, to be chaired by Legislator Constantine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Call the order of the Committee on Public Safety and Firefighting. We have two items for you tonight. First is PSF 4, a resolution regarding Schenectady County Hazard Mitigation Plan and acceptance thereof. With us tonight to introduce myself and her, we have Yi-Mei Han, who's the Schenectady County Environmental Programs Manager, along with Paul Sheldon, the Director of Engineering, to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, Yi-Mei Han is our environmental program manager. She's been working on this program for the last 2 years. She oversees this program as well as the MS4 program. She's here tonight to just kind of give you a quick overview of what the program's about and what the updates are.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity. I would like to present the hazard mitigation plan for the county and requesting the adoption of resolution so the county can stay eligible to receive FEMA disaster relief grant funding. The hazard mitigation plan was prepared for the county to cope current and future hazard events and minimize damages, and also work with local jurisdictions cohesively through communication. It is important that we update this plan every 5 years as requested by FEMA. In this round of plan update, most has changed was to move the hazard mitigation plan from paper copy to a digital online format, and you can find in in the memo, that would be the schenectady.mitigate.ny.org. So the plan update process included jurisdictional meetings, interviews with the 8 local jurisdictions, including City, Niskayuna, Scotia, Glenville, Rotterdam, Princetown, Davidson, and Duansburg, by the representative of the county, FEMA, and the New York State Division of Homeland Security. Type of the actions that we considered were structural, also property protection and infrastructure, natural resource protection and restoration, which is part of the MS4 for erosion control, planning, regulatory through zoning, education, outreach, and awareness for the public. So Schenectady County previously actions were reviewed as Schenectady Community College flood protection, which had been completed, Community College transformer relocation that had been completed, Community College emergency generator purchasing still in process because they are looking for sizing. Also the New York State NISONet, that's the alerting system, and weather, canal, river gauge, and USGS flood monitoring that have been completed as well. So from this current grant, not only the county was able to update the hazard mitigation plan, we also leveraged the grant to develop a new customized flood data software. It's called the Real-Time Indentation Modeling Program. With this program, combined with the SIMS data we already have and the National Weather Service 5-day forecasting and USGS flood monitoring, will help us to develop early warning of flooding to assist in risk analysis. So from this hazard mitigation plan update, part of the plan update including outreach to the neighboring communities through email and online survey, we were able to receive 222 public comments, and they have all been addressed. Majority of the concern were power outages at homes and public sewer water interruptions, safety of the vulnerable groups. The draft of the plan have been approved by New York State Division of Homeland Security last December 2021. FEMA had approved in January 2022. Now the final step is to for local resolution approving the plan updates. So since the implementation-wise, since the adoption of the hazard mitigation plan in 2008, 2 significant hazard mitigation grant projects were implemented. As you all know, the stabilization of the Broadway Hill West side of the I-890, that was about $2.2 million. 3 homes were purchased, residents relocated, and building demolished, slope stabilized, and commercial building, bottom of the slope renovated and leased out. DSS had a new location in veterans housing as well. Also, we had the second significant project that would be Scotia, the village of Scotia, the riverbanks stabilization. That project cost about $635,942, and it had happened in 2010 before Irene, provided a very successful in preventing the continued erosion of the riverbanks in the village of Scotia due to high flows and ice.
Are there any questions for our Public Works colleagues?
Yes, thank you so much for that information. I'm wondering, the real-time inundation modeling with the flood software, is that something that's available to the public to view? I personally live in and represent a community that does lie within a floodplain, and I'm just curious if that's something that would be available to the public.
Right. It's actually for in office use only. So the engineering department, together with the emergency management, we use it in-house, but we could publicize the result.
Okay. And another question. The public outreach and engagement, could you just go into a little bit of further detail? What did that entail, and how did you go about kind of finding these folks and reaching out to them?
Okay, so we had to reach out to neighboring counties Also had to post online surveys. The survey questions were generated by FEMA, actually. They were posted on the county's website as well. So within a certain time frame, I think they were given a 30-day review period. Based on that, we were able to receive over 220 comments.
Thank you. Any other questions? Have a motion?
Support.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone abstain? Thank you. Motion's moved to the floor. Thank you, Yi-Mei, Paul. Second agenda tonight is PSF 5, a resolution to amend the 2022 operational budget regarding the 2020 Regional Catastrophic Preparedness Grant. And specifically, our Emergency Management Office, I spoke with earlier today, is requesting to use $92,000 of that grant this year to participate in a hazard mitigation drill with some surrounding counties that we've worked with before. Are there any questions?
Move to report.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Thank you. PSF items moved to the floor. PSF for Public Safety and Firefighting is closed.
Thank you. Our final committee meeting of the evening is the Committee on Ways and Means, to be chaired by Legislator McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call the Committee on Ways and Means to order. We have
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hughes.
note that all items on the Ways and Means Committee agenda tonight are dual referrals from other committees, and they were discussed earlier this evening. I would ask if you would entertain a motion to move this calendar in its entirety.
Absolutely. We have a motion. We have a second. Legislator Gatta, all those in favor?
Aye.
The Committee on Ways and Means is now closed.
Thank you, and that concludes our business for this evening. Thank you all.